Hi, my name is Leah.
And I'm Nick.
And we're going to be talking to you today about plot diagrams.
And today we're going to use the story of Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare to demonstrate how a plot diagram works.
The beginning of a lot of stories are called the exposition. This is really what puts the story into place and sets up the mood for it. The beginning of Romeo and Juliet starts off in Verona, Italy, where the Montagues and the Capulets have been feuding for years. Romeo sneaks into Juliet's party in order to confess his love for a woman named Rosaline. This is where him and Juliet met, though, and they end up falling in love. This whole setup is the beginning and the exposition of Romeo and Juliet.
Next we're going to talk about the rising action. The rising action in the story are all the events that lead up to the climax, which is the highest point of the story. But you need all these events to get to the climax, or else your story is not going to be that good. The rising action in Romeo and Juliet starts when Romeo and Juliet first fall in love. They decide that they must marry, and they do it in secret because of their feuding families. Their love would not be accepted.
After the rising action of the story, we hit the climax. The climax is the highest point of the story. This is when the protagonist starts to get a downward path. The climax of Romeo and Juliet is when Tybalt, Juliet's cousin, decides he wants to battle Mercutio, Romeo's best friend, to a duel. He then kills him, which makes Romeo very enraged. Romeo decides to seek revenge on Tybalt and then kills him. Because of this, he is banished from Verona.
Next we're going to talk about the falling action. The falling action consists of all of the events that lead up to the end of the story. Almost all of these events are against the protagonist. The falling action in Romeo and Juliet starts when Juliet hears about the altercation between Mercutio, Tybalt, and Romeo, and when she hears of Romeo's banishment, she is put into deep despair. When Juliet's parents see how sad she is, they mistake it as being lonely, and they force her to marry a man named Paris. If she refuses to marry Paris, her parents will disown her. Juliet acquires a drug from Friar Lawrence, which will give her the appearance of having died, and she fakes her own death.
After having seen the climax and the falling action of the story, now we hit the moment of final suspense. This is when all the things seem to go as they're going to go along with the protagonist. However, in this story, it's a little bit different. Romeo is informed that Juliet is dead. She was supposed to let him know through a letter that she was not actually dead, she was just taking a potion that made her appear to be dead. However, Romeo didn't get this. When Juliet wakes up from her deep sleep, she sees Romeo on the side of her, laying dead. She ends up taking his poison and drinking it from her, then dies herself.
Now we are going to talk about the resolution of the story, which is basically just the end of the entire story. All of the events leading up to this come to fruition at the end. The Montagues, Capulets, and the Prince all meet at the tomb where they see all three of the bodies. The families are reconciled by their children's love and their deaths, and the feud is ended. Thank you all so much for watching and learning with us today.
And we hope you can better understand what a plot diagram is and how to use it.